Hello there. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett, and we're going to go to a railway museum today in this video. There are several in the province of British Columbia, and we're going to go to the one at Squamish. I was at the Railway Museum in Cranbrook, BC, when I edited this video on the Squamish Railway Museum. This train is outside the Cranbrook Museum, but let's get back to Squamish. Squamish is about halfway to Whistler, the big ski and biking resort, and I made a video on Whistler as well. It is a two-lane highway up here with several passing lanes. At times there is heavy traffic, so you will just have to drive accordingly. Okay, let's go to Squamish. We pulled into the parking lot in the old RV and parked it, but what interested me was on the other side of the fence, over here, just look and see, look at there. I wanted to ride that thing. Now, it looks like it's for kids, but the guy driving it is no kid. I wonder if we could get on that thing. There are 6 railway museums in the province. There's the one here at Squamish, and on the island there's 2 of them, one at Port Alberni and the other at Duncan. Back in the mainland, railway museums, you can find them in Cranbrook, Port Moody, and at Revelstoke. Because a train locomotive or the cars are big, they're often housed in big structures like this one here at Squamish. Did we get to ride that little train? You betcha we did. And I'll just tell you a little bit more about that later on. If you get a chance, visit a railway museum that's near you. You will get an appreciation how the railway changed the nature of this province and the entire country. When the railway, where it went, a settlement followed. It not only followed, it expanded. The railway meant contact. With a railway, people were able to do things in a big land. Big things like things that maybe is easier and quicker travel, and the ability to haul heavy things and large amounts. I know you're dying to know how to get a ride on this little train, but we'll have to wait and tell you about that a little bit later. In the meantime, let's go inside the big building. Train museums often have a showpiece locomotive housed in the building, and this is the one at Squamish. This is the Royal Hudson. It is not just any old Hudson, it is the Royal Hudson. This brute hauled the King and Queen of England, King George the Sixth and Queen Elizabeth at the time, the entire distance across Canada in 1939, just prior to the Second World War. They would be the great grandparents or the great-great-grandparents of the current King and Queen of Britain today. On most royal long-distance trips in those days, the King and Queen had to change locomotives several times for maintenance. However, this engine hauled the royal couple from Atlantic to Pacific right across Canada with no changes. As a result, the King's Crown emblem was allowed to be displayed on the train, and you can see that yellow-colored emblem of the crown on the front side of the locomotive. The royal family designated this class of Hudsons as royal. They are the only locomotives outside of Britain to be designated as being royal. So, this baby is more than just a locomotive. It is more than just a Hudson. It is a Royal Hudson locomotive, and it is right here in the Squamish Train Museum. My claim to fame is that I'm in the portrait portfolio of the royal family. I worked in the railway on the section, and the Duke of Edinburgh and Queen Elizabeth II came out and visited Canada, and I was working on the section, so we had to get off the track when the big new train rolled by. And when the train went by, I then stepped back out onto the track to do some work, and the Duke of Edinburgh stepped out behind his last car in the train and took a picture of me on the railroad track. So that's my claim to fame. I figure I'm in the Royal Photography Archives. Getting back to the museum, we saw some vintage cars from the 30s and 40s. That railway car on the far side was a business car that railway executives rode in as they attended to railway business and attended business meetings in different parts of the country. It was built in 1890, totally of wood, and refurbished in 1912. Let's go in and look at it. We'll just climb the steps here and make a left turn. And what's the first kind of a room we're looking at here? Looks like a seating area. Maybe a place where people could visit and read the newspaper. Let's go further in. The halls are pretty narrow here, but I guess a train car is only so wide. We'll just swing this door open, and looks like a narrow hallway on the right side with the rooms over on the left. Nice bedroom here for sleeping in. Let's see what else is down this hall here. Looks like another room for sitting up, a washroom or a sink in it. Okay, let's just follow it on down. Another room with a cot in it, maybe for a single passenger. Remember, these were executives. They were the run-of-the-mill kind of public riders on this train. Hey, looks like the kitchen area where they made some food. Maybe you could get a bite to eat there. Although I didn't see any dining area, maybe they could sit at this table down here at this end of the train. Pretty nice plush seats. This is probably where they did eat a little bit and visit. And it looks like the work. Old typewriter there. Besides having fun riding that little train, we learned quite a bit too. The guy who gave us a ride on the little train, I think his name was Tom. But anyway, he told us a lot of the history of the railway in this part of the country. And if there are some errors in that historical fact, I just want to say that I'm not to blame. It would be that Tom who gave us the information. I'm not to blame. I'm innocent. I'm not responsible for what I say or do. At last, it was our turn, and we just backed in and hooked right up, and in no time, we were away and down the line. Look at the little telegraph poles. The telegraph line often went along with the railway line. They were both the means of communication and transportation. Train station agents continually communicated with telegraph. Before the railway, getting up the coast was mainly limited to boat travel. A couple of years before the outbreak of World War I, about 1912, investors in England who called themselves the Great Eastern Railway built a rail line from Squamish northward. They called the line the Pacific Great Eastern Railway. Pacific referring to the railway here on the Pacific, and Great Eastern referring to the original English company. Here's one of the cars from those old days. The museum has this smaller engine, a real old timer. The Pacific Great Eastern used it in building a railway from Squamish northward to Lillooet. Just drive that highway today, and you will see it was across rugged mountain country. It's bad enough to drive on a paved highway today, never mind trying to build a railway across the wilderness. Getting investment money was a challenge for the company. Attention to and money during World War I was a further obstacle. The railway gained the reputation of being the railway from nowhere to nowhere. It took several years to build to Prince George. It went through no sizable communities, and that was a major problem. Nicknames were derogatory, calling the line the province's greatest expense. Or how about this one? Past God's endurance. Another one. Puff, grunt, and expire. The province had to get help, and the name changed to BC Rail. Across the entire nation, similar smaller railways were having the same trouble. Yet the country needed railways to move heavy and large goods across great distances. The federal government came to the rescue. In 2004, BC Rail was taken over by the Canadian National Railway, CN. And that is the way it is today. Canada just has a great history of railway building. When we worked on the railroad, we were having to lift those big greasy tar ties. And I was a fairly small guy, and I couldn't hold them out from my hands when we lifted, one guy at one end and the other guy at the other end. And so I had to let them come and rest into my stomach area. And as a result, that tar got on my clothes. My pants, work pants, were covered with tar. And when I went to bed in the bunkhouse at night to sleep, I could take my trousers off, and the top part around the waist was solid with that dried up tar. The bottom part around the knees and that, and below the knees, that was all normal cloth that would bend and was flexible. So I could take my trousers and set them upright on the floor. And that's how they set each night as I slept. I noticed the museum had an old Great Northern Railway car here. The Great Northern was a U.S. company that competed fiercely with the Canadian Pacific over mainly hauling minerals from mines in southern BC. The Great Northern hauled coal out of BC's southeastern Elk Valley that was the energy source for the industrialization of the American Northwest, mainly in the Seattle area over the years. Part of the old Great Northern railbed today is in the southeastern BC is part of the Crow's Nest Highway. In the meantime, we are enjoying life on the little Squamish Railway. We went along a little creek bed here. Trains were housed on the right-hand side. We went around a curve, and there was the front of the main building. Some of these train museums do have some very extensive train models. And the model has tracks and trains and crossings and buildings in the model. So Squamish has a nice model. Let's take a look at it. It's the model of the Yukon Railway up that runs in the Yukon from Skagway in Alaska north toward Whitehorse. Why is the model train display of a railway in the Yukon? Well, I'm guessing, but the White Pass line in the Yukon was one of the passes gold seekers traveled over in order to get to Canada's most famous gold rush, the Klondike Gold Rush. After the rush was over, they eventually built a railway over the White Pass. There's nothing like toys to make you feel young again. Most train models don't even identify any particular area. They are just toy models of the real thing anywhere. Railway model building is a popular hobby, and both the builders and viewers get a lot of enjoyment from them. Anyway, the railway model at Squamish is about the White Pass and Yukon route that's up in the Yukon. This map shows just how far the White Pass is from Squamish. We're down here in the lower left of the photograph near Vancouver. And you can see it's all through the length of British Columbia. The White Pass is on the border of the Yukon and Alaska. And the Klondikers went over the White Pass, and they even had further to go yet. They had to go through a big part of the Yukon to Dawson City, where the Klondike Gold Rush occurred. And this one more thing about this map, while we're on it, besides showing the how far away the White Pass was. It shows also the two main rail lines in Canada. The white line here is the Canadian National Railway, and Canadian National took over some of the smaller railways across the country and in the interior of British Columbia here. So the white is the Canadian National Railway, and the Canadian Pacific Railway stayed in the southern part of the country where business opportunities were more available. But both lines today eventually run to the port of Vancouver. This railway model was housed in the better part of an old railway car, so it was pretty big. One end of the model started with this sternwheeler, which was a steam paddle ship that sailed the Yukon River. These boats were used in those days because they could navigate in shallow water, which was a characteristic of rivers like the Yukon River, with shallow rapids and sandbars. Just look at the models of the cars and the buildings. Very realistic. There's a wagon on the side, and here we go, right through the middle of town. Even the sound was like a train. You could bet somebody had a lot of fun making this model. Look at the details of the tracks and the barrels on that truck and the carts here. And here's a trestle. The train's going over that pretty soon. In the meantime, let's look at some of these models. Look at the moose on the left there. Some graveyard tombs that were going by. A lot of fun making these little amateur toys. Here, the train tracks are heading out of town. We're going by the church, and we're rolling into, looks like the high country. You'll hear the train lugging a little bit as it tries to gain elevation. And then it'll pick up speed, and the old steamer beats a little bit faster. And just along the edges here, along the cliffs, I'm just walking along, photographing this model train through the glass, and around the bend, there's a door there ahead of us, not part of the train model, but you can see how it's inside of a building. Okay, we're going over a bridge and into a tunnel. Where to? I better walk fast and try to catch up. Whoa! I'm walking fast, and it's leaving me behind. So, if you ever get a chance to visit a railway museum, take advantage of that. It's a part of our history. The railway is what really built this country in many ways. Communities and settlements formed along the railway track. It was the lifeblood of the country. Well, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. And we'll see you down the trail. Again, hit the subscribe button, and that'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. Until then, adios for now. If you want to see more of my videos, just do what it says along the bottom there. Google my address, start with a little @ sign, @DonBarnett5090. Click my name, and then hit the word playlists in the middle of the page. And scroll down to the different playlists and select whichever playlist you like. Each playlist contains several travel videos.